All right, John, you're going to love this. The Angels file a cease and desist order against Dylan Cease. He took advantage of us all game yesterday.
Ugh.
So we're going to talk about that. Plus, Jo Adell, come on, buddy. We need you to step up, right? So we're going to talk about Jo Adell again. And John and I are actually going to ask this question. Are the experts wrong about the Angels minor league system? We think so, and we're going to tell you why. You're Locked On with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. If you're listening on the audio side, you can rate and review the pod. And if you're watching on the video side, you can subscribe and click that bell and get notified whenever there's a new episode coming out.
What's going on? Thanks for joining us for this edition of Locked On Angels. You got the Frisch brothers here, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Oh man, so I'm wearing this hat because it's my trout farm hat.
Yeah,
I just got to show some support and some love for Mike Trout after that game on Monday.
That was tough. That was a tough game.
One, man.
It seemed like we looked good in 2 of the 4 games, and then they just pitched really well. And it's the first time we've been shut out, and we've been shut out twice now in the last 4 games. And so It was tough. It was a tough watch. I'm not super disappointed, but it was a tough watch.
If you're watching on the YouTube side, I got this great Trout hat. How's that look from the side there, Mike?
That looks fantastic. That's a good profile.
So if you're on the audio side, get on over to the YouTube side and check it out.
It's worth checking out.
Yeah, so before the game, we did have some good news. Taylor Ward was named the American League Player of the Week.
Attaboy, Taylor.
So happy to hear that. It's the first time he's ever received that. Let's look at the slash line here.
Yeah, because this is unreal.
448 batting average, a 484 on base percentage, and a 1,484 OPS. Isn't that crazy, those numbers? 448, 484, 1484. So all the 4s and 8s and 4s there. 4 home runs, 10 runs scored, and 11 RBIs. If you haven't picked him up on your fantasy team, get to it because nobody's paying attention. So get on that.
And you already did. You're the genius in your fantasy league, right?
Well, I didn't come out so great last week, but that had nothing to do with my
You're not
hitting.
supposed to talk about that. You're just supposed to say, yes, I'm the genius.
But hey, we had Patrick Sandoval, my boy Sandy, on the mound against Dylan Cease.
We did.
And Cease was just completely dominant. 11 Ks through 7 innings, only 1 hit against Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward got that double. The Angels bats went quiet. Marsh was 0 for 16 this weekend, which is not typical Brandon Marsh. Sandoval wasn't bad outside of that first inning where he struggled. And let me just read his stats really fast, and then I have a thought. Okay. 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 3 hits, 3 walks, and 2 Ks. He's sitting at a 1.29 ERA. Of course, his first 3 starts, he had a 0.
He didn't have an ERA. So
And he was one of 5 pitchers since the 1960s to do that. So that was pretty cool to see. The only highlight was Andrew Velasquez, man, had some incredible plays and some great defense at shortstop, which is why he's still with this team. And I think that he's proven to be that late inning defensive replacement guy. But I mean, he played the whole game on Monday. And so he was a necessary part of that defense. And he had some great plays. But I had a note on Patrick Sandoval and kind of the Angels starting pitchers in general. What is it about the first inning where they just seem to still be struggling and not being able to locate pitches? Because that seemed to be Patrick Sandoval's Achilles heel in that first inning was walking guys and not being able to locate the pitches where he wanted to. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's the weather. I think that you mentioned on the pod yesterday that the weather might have gotten to them and it's cold. But here's the thing that I find very optimistic about the pitching staff, especially Sandy's start yesterday, is this is a typical game where he's down 2-0 early and then it just kind of unravels, right? Suddenly it's 5-0. Suddenly it's 7-0. Yesterday going 6 innings and only giving up 3 hits and 3 runs. That's a huge improvement. He is a pitcher now. And I think that what we saw yesterday was actually a good thing. Just like we talked about when Rysel struggled to close the game out on Sunday night, I think yesterday's game was a benefit for Sandy because he's learning along the way. He's growing as a pitcher. And I'll tell you, I really was impressed with him hanging in there. And I was impressed that Joe Maddon actually let him stay in there. And so high five to both of those guys. I don't know if it's weather. I don't know if it's just learning, but it seems like those pitchers need one inning to get the kinks out, to work out the wiggles before they actually get into a rhythm, right?
Yeah, it's same thing with Shohei Ohtani. It's that first inning that just comes back to bite them, and then they settle in and cruise. So I don't know if the warm-up routine needs to change. I don't know if they need more time in the bullpen beforehand. It's the mental shift from going from the bullpen to the mound, getting a feel for the mound even. Maybe the mound is something that they got to get used to. I know it's supposed to be the same at every ballpark, but remember there was a few starts in Oakland probably about 10 years ago where our guys just couldn't get it right. They couldn't locate pitches, and it was like, is there something wrong with this mound? It's like too high. So
I don't know if it's something like that or something. They didn't like how they were landing, and so their follow through wasn't good. And there's a lot of aspects that play into that, and it could have been also the time, right? I mean, they played it so many different times this past weekend in this 4-game series that can throw you off as well.
How about Erica Weston jumping in the booth last minute to cover for Gooby? I thought she did a good job.
Hey, she crushed it.
Coming in last minute like that. So
she had some really great insight, and Patrick O'Neill and her really had a great camaraderie. And there was a couple of moments where they were talking about, Gooby's not feeling well, and then Patrick was like, "But don't worry, everything's okay. He'll be back." But at first, they kind of made it sound like something was serious, and so I think that's why he doubled down. He's like, "No, he's good. He's gonna be back. So don't worry about things." But you do notice and you do miss when Gooby is not in the booth, because he has some great calls and analytics, and he's able to give us some insight into what's happening, because obviously being an all-star and a World Series hero and a 20-game winner, he knows what's happening on the mound.
Absolutely. Yeah. So shout out to Gooby. Feel better. Probably got that stomach bug that's going around to everybody. But speaking of stomach bug, today's game in Boston
nice transition.
is going to feature Noah Syndergaard, who should have started on Saturday, but ended up starting, I should say Friday, I believe.
Yes, it was Friday. Yeah.
Friday, he should have started. And he will be starting today's game against Michael Wacha. That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah.
Michael Wacha with the Red Sox. Let's look at these stats here. They're both 2-0. Syndergaard has a 2.12 ERA in 3 starts. Wacha's got a 1.77 ERA in 4 starts. But here's the kicker. The Red Sox are 9-14 so far. So this feels very similar to the White Sox in the sense that this is a tough team who's off to a bad start. And you're going to look at these teams probably in June, July, and August and go, oh, that April didn't mean much considering how good they're doing now.
Right.
And I think the same thing happened with the White Sox. We split the series with the White Sox 2-2, and it's just because we got to a tough team who was down on their luck, and it showed. They were a tough team, and they had some stellar pitching with Dylan Cease on Monday. So all of that to say, I think it's very interesting that we're taking on these two teams back to back who are both kind of down on their luck, but we'll see how the Angels can fare. Get this, Mike, their record last season, the Angels record coming into May, 12-18 after a 12-12 April.
Yeah.
Oof. And so to be up the way that we are now, which is fantastic, against the Red Sox last season, they were 3-3. So they split the season series. They were 1-2 at home, 2-1 in Boston. That's where Ohtani had that wraparound home run around the pesky pole.
Yep.
So that was cool to see. So this should be an interesting series. Again, Syndergaard versus Michael Wacha today. And let's go out there and get a win. Turn the page, like Soch used to say. And then once they're done in this series in Boston, they'll be back home against the Nationals. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
Coming up on Locked On Angels, are the Angel minor leaguers as bad as the experts say? They always get ranked near the bottom. Are the experts wrong? John and I will tell you that we think that they are wrong. But first, we want to talk to you about LinkedIn. It's who's sponsoring our episode today. With spring in the air, it's time for renewal and growth personally and professionally. And as your business grows, LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find people that you want to talk to faster and for free. You can create a linked job post on LinkedIn Jobs, and you can reach beyond your network. It's a professional network of over 810 million people. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and maybe even possibly hire. It's why small businesses like LinkedIn, they rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And LinkedIn Jobs helps you find candidates that you want to talk to. And did you know, John, that nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn every single day? So
that's a lot.
Post your job at linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnMLB. You can post your job for free if you do that today. And remember, there are some terms and conditions that do apply.
And Locked On Angels is also brought to you by BetOnline. Check out BetOnline for your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, and of course, this year's Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and much more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. And now for your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. You get recaps of MLB games with analysis from local experts, taking fans like you through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, Mike, the talk of Monday's game, outside of being shut out by Dylan Cease and his incredible start against the Angels, was Jo Adell.
Yeah,
and
it was.
Unfortunately, it was not a great conversation. So if we look at Jo Adell's performance on Monday, he looked very lost at the plate, but even more so in left field. Now, you and I have talked about this many times, and I think that Jo Adell is a much better right fielder, but as long as Taylor Ward is going to be in that outfield, I think that's his spot to own. So it's one of those situations where he's going to have to learn left field, but his path to the ball wasn't exactly smooth. He's always reaching to grab the ball, reaching over his head. It's behind him, that sort of thing. And the throws are off too. He's missing the cutoff man. He threw all the way home to try to get Jose Abreu, and then he ended up scoring from first.
Yeah.
And it's not smooth sailing for Jo Adell out there right now. So we have to really consider what Jo Adell's position on this team is. So where would you put him? Is it time to send him down? Is he a DH? What's missing from Jo Adell's game right now?
Well, we had a segment a few weeks ago where we asked the question, is Jo Adell going to be okay? And you and I both agreed, he's going to be okay.
Sure.
And he's working out the kinks. And we've had conversations about, hey, let's let the kids play and let's let them figure it out. Even last week, we talked about how the left field position isn't a needed position for success for the Angels organization during the season. And so you can have some ebb and flow in left field, but when you watch Jo play, something isn't clicking, and it feels like he's playing with fear instead of fearless.
Interesting.
Right? And you mentioned the path to the ball, and you mentioned him reaching over. I think that you got to give him maybe some more time in left field before you send him down. And here's why I say that. If you send him down, you're bringing up Jose Rojas. And I know that you're not a huge fan of Jose in the outfield. You like him more in the infield, but
or
the
not
thing
at all.
is that, or not at all, right? I wasn't going to throw you completely under the bus, but
come at me, Rojas family, come at me.
The thing is that I would rather, over the two, thinking about the two, I would rather have Jo Adell in there trying to figure it out because he's got the better future. Sure. He's got the better bat. And I think he's the better athlete. If you send him down, then it is Rojas, or maybe there's another outfielder, or maybe you bring up somebody for the infield. Let's say they bring up Stefanik, right? Michael Stefanik, and you move Wade to the outfield.
Yeah.
It could happen, right? But that doesn't seem like that's going to really balance out your team very well. So in my opinion, I think you got to let Jo work the kinks out. I think the problem is that he's not out there that often. But with Marsh struggling at the plate, it might be time to maybe give Jo a few more at-bats and a few more tries in the outfield. And quite frankly, I wonder if it might be wise to move Ward and Adell and to adjust what they're doing in the outfield, because it seems like Ward has got a good head on his shoulders right now, and he's going to be just fine wherever you play him.
That's
true. If Adell's more comfortable in right, I personally would like to see him out there. I don't think it's time to send him down quite yet. What do you think?
I think that if you consider what they're doing with Jose Suarez, giving him a chance to go to AAA and work on some of his mechanics and work on his pitching skills, like we said in yesterday's episode, Suarez has the swing and miss stuff. It's just not happening because he needs to get ahead in counts. And so AAA is going to be a nice spot for him to work on that. And man, what happened to the Jo Adell who was mashing in AAA last season?
Yeah.
And also the guy who came up and was defensively doing very well. This seems more like 2020 Joe rather than 21 Joe.
That's a good point.
And I think that if he has a chance to go down and work on some mechanics, yeah, you might need to bring up Rojas. I do like the suggestion, and I was actually going to say this too. Tyler Wade in the outfield. He's played the outfield before. He's got the speed. We don't know if he's got the reads off of the bat out there.
Yeah.
But I think he's a capable outfielder. He's done it before. But Tyler Wade also has an excellent fielding percentage at short and at second base. So I don't know if you want to take him out of that combination. Right. Exactly. And that's kind of the one thing that Stefanik is lacking is that defensive side. At least that's the talk right now. So I think if you do bring up a fourth outfielder and it's going to be Jose Rojas, if that means that Jo Adell can get it together, I think that it's not a bad idea to send him down. However, I think you're right in the sense that he hasn't had a lot of at-bats and he hasn't had a lot of time in left field. And if you move Taylor Ward to a different spot in the outfield, we've seen him play center and do really well out there. And so I'm sure that, like you said, with a good head on his shoulders, he's quite capable of running left field and put Jo Adell in right, because I can't remember a time that Joe made a mistake last season in right field or even this season.
Yeah.
And so there's just something about him being on that side of the field where he's just reading the ball that much better. And I think that it would serve him well.
And I think that you make a really great point. It's the read, right? It's the read off the bat. I remember, and this is going to sound really terrible and really cheesy, but we're going to talk about it. Our friend Mark played softball with us, and he played some minor league baseball. And one of the things that he taught us, I don't know if you remember this or not, but one of the things he taught us is that your first step is always back. Always take a step back, especially when you're fast, so that you can get a better look at the ball.
Yeah.
But if you'll notice Adell in the outfield, he's not taking any sort of step. He's just kind of frozen and watching where the ball is going. And then he's so good and he's so athletic and he's so fast, he's overrunning some of the balls that are coming his way. And so I wonder if it might be that you get him out there with a Gallego or you get him out there with a Benji Gill and you just hit some balls to him during batting practice and you teach him how to read from left field. And that might be it. That might be the simple thing that he needs to do. And I don't know if that maybe needs to be a demotion to the minor leagues to teach him that. It might be something that they can fix while he's in the majors. Cause
I think so.
He's going to hit. Joe's going to hit, right? He feels like
that'll
a DH.
Come back around.
He feels like a DH, right? He's going to be that guy that's going to mash, and we know that that's going to happen. But if he can actually be a two-way player, that only benefits him, and it benefits the Angels.
Not the two-way player like Shohei, but actually being a defensive and offensive
hitter and fielder. Yes, yeah.
There you go.
You got to be careful of your language now, right?
I know. One last thing on Jo Adell. He's 23 years old, and the talk of the past week or two has been Taylor Ward, who's 28. And it took this long and it took him this amount of time to really get it together. And I think the same could be said for Jo Adell. He's somebody that we are going to admire in the future. Not everybody can be Mike Trout. Not everybody can come up at age 20 and have an immediate impact on a team.
But why not? How come, John?
Why not? All right. Locked On Angels is brought to you by Rock Auto. With so many different makes and models of cars today, it can be nearly impossible to expect your local auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. And then sometimes you have to answer questions that you might not know the answer to, like, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? Do you even know the answer?
No.
And if you do answer correctly, then you got to wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand that their warehouse is going to supply them. But you don't have to do that anymore, and here's why. RockAuto.com. You have all the access you need to all the parts your car will ever need. From brake parts to tail lamps to motor oil, even new carpet, rockauto.com has it all. And here's the good news. Rock Auto is a family business, and they've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. And because they're family owned, they understand budgets. And that's why Rock Auto has reliably low prices for every single customer. So if you're working on your car, go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And when you do, make sure to write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Go to rockauto.com today. All right, Mike, last segment for this edition of Locked On Angels. Let's talk about the Angels minor league system and the opinions that the experts have had over the last few years. What you got for me?
All right, so every year we're told that the Angels are at or near the bottom of the rankings.
Every year.
Every year. I can't remember any time that they've actually said anything positive about the Angels minor league system since I've been an Angel fan and been paying attention to it, right? So, yet when they say that, here are some of the names that come from the minor league system. David Fletcher, Taylor Ward, Brandon Marsh, Reed Detmers, Jared Walsh, and even Jo Adell, right? They were all drafted by the Angels. They've all played in the minors, and all of them were a part of the Angel prospects that were labeled as the worst or near the bottom of the league, right? And there were some mix of really good players and great players. So, John, were the experts wrong about these players and about the minor league system as one of the worst? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show that when you have guys like Fletcher and Jared Walsh making an impact the way that they have, I don't understand. I mean, those guys literally came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so many of us were surprised that when they did get called up and performed very well, we were like, oh, these guys are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And what's Jared Walsh's draft number? Like we say it all the time, like 36th round or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has to do with how low a guy like him was ranked, or if the experts are just not seeing what the Angels are seeing in these players.
Sure.
At the same time, it could have everything to do with the fact that they are moving up and being coached well. And so the system gets better as they move through the organization. And to be honest, there's hundreds of prospects and minor leaguers, and it's got to be hard to get a grasp on just how well these people are doing and these systems are. And I think that if you look at guys like Walsh and Fletcher and even Marsh and Adell, you hear about them, but at the same time, it's hard to collectively decide like, hey, here's some outliers here, and then here's the rest, and then how do you group them together? How do you rate them all together? So I understand why there's a disconnect, but I think by all accounts, these guys have been putting it together as soon as they have the opportunity. I know it's taken some time for guys like Walsh and guys like Taylor Ward, but I don't know, man. By all accounts, it seems like they have been wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you. And here's why I agree with you, because when Trout was a minor leaguer on MLB The Show, I think like 2011, they used one of the experts' analysis of Mike Trout.
Was that
for
a real
game.
Thing? Oh, I didn't know that.
What I read was it was a real thing. So it was on the internet, so it has to be true. And so, but it talked about how Trout was going to be this mediocre player, right?
Right.
And you hear that
and
a
now
lot.
We got a hat.
And now we got a hat. If you got a hat, you know you made it, right?
You made it.
Here's the thing that I think is true about the Angels minor league system. It seems like it takes the players some time to really develop.
That is true.
I mean, you mentioned Ward, you mentioned Walsh, 28 and 27. Right? That's how old they are. And now they're both finally putting it together. And so you make a really good point. And so I'm going to agree with that maybe perhaps there are some tools that they're getting as they come up to the major league level that they aren't necessarily getting in the minor leagues, which then causes the evaluations to be a bit off for players like Ward or Walsh or Fletcher, right?
Right.
And I wonder if Perry and some of the people that he has brought in will help to offset that. Because I wonder if they've noticed that too, and they've decided that they're going to bring in some people to help change the narrative. Obviously, a great ranking for your system doesn't mean much, but what it does mean, though, like for the New York Yankees, for example, the Yankees have a great minor league system.
Yeah.
Or at least they're known for a great minor league system. So
Sure.
it helps in trades. It helps when you're trying to make trades mid-season. So even if the guy's not very good, it might help you get somebody that's very good and then trade away somebody that potentially isn't going to be good. And so I wonder, do you think that the ratings even matter to the players? Do you think it affects their development at all?
Not to the players individually. No, I think that's more for us fans and for us to argue about on a podcast. You know what I mean?
At least it's great content.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Thanks for the content, guys. Keith Law. But when it comes to the individual players, I mean, they're just grinding. They're just trying to get to the majors and they're doing the best that they can. But you make an interesting point about Perry Manassian and what he's been able to do for this team. And I know that when you hire new coaches and new systems and implement new systems and things like that, it's not going to take a hold right away. Yeah. But think about where we were. Gosh, 2012, 2013, Jerry Dipoto depleted that system and traded away a lot of guys who could have been helpful to us in the future. Mike Clevenger is one of those guys that always
he was there.
Bothers me that he got traded away for 4 months of Vinny Pastano, who then retired when the season was over.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Good luck with the Mariners. But you think about that's always the narrative is our system is depleted. It's depleted. And I mean, the fact that we drafted 20 pitchers and signed 19 of them, somebody's got to break through. Somebody's got to break through the glass ceiling there. And we're confident in that out of 19 pitchers. And those guys are automatically elevating this Angels team. And I even think about guys like Austin Warren. Austin Warren's come up and has been great.
And he came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just think that there are surprises and diamonds in the rough in this minor league system. And I take these player rankings, these system rankings in stride because it's fun to talk about it and debate it. But when it comes down to it, it comes down to the individual performances of the players and what they're able to do. And by all accounts, we have some good prospects in our system who are just a few years away because they're young.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to be really impressed with who's coming up through the system in a few years' time. So that's my opinion on that.
That's great. And I can't believe that we had Mike Clevenger and we traded him away. Oh, all right, I need to calm down.
Collect yourself.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, and now make your second listen. The Locked On MLB podcast, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. He brings his unique perspective on major leagues past and present, and it's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter if you want to follow the podcast. You can reach Mike and I at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, if you haven't done so yet, hop on over to YouTube, search Locked On Angels, and you'll find our channel and give us a subscribe so that you can see our friendly faces that we've been given and my fish hat.
Yes.
And my trout hat, I should say.
That's good.
And we would really appreciate your subscribe and view over there. And of course, you can always leave us comments on the video as well. And it's always fun interacting with you. So please do so. We would really appreciate it. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow?
Tomorrow on Locked On Angels, we're going to tell you why a slower start, not just a slow start, but a slower start for Shohei Ohtani is actually a good thing for the Angels.
I like it. Looking forward to that conversation. Give one more look to my profile here of the trout hat. Here we go.
Good. Styling. Your wife married up.
I gotta get her one of these hats too.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Until next time, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And we'll see you right here tomorrow on Locked On Angels.